Hi, this chapter is called The Basic Sentence, and it's an overview of it. So let's talk about it. So in this lab, it's technically lab because this is what the L stands for this class. So it's it's English 122 AL. That L stands for lab. And so this is the part of the class where we talk about errors, common errors, and how to fix them. So these are the four most serious and most common errors in any English um, first, sorry, like 1A English, the first college level English. This happens. So we want to make sure that these errors don't happen. And before we do that, we need to learn about the basic sentences and the different types of speech and everything that goes in with the basic sentence. Okay, so in your book, this is page 311, starts at page 311. Um, First, the basic parts of speech. I'm very happy this is review for you, okay, but it's a good idea just to make sure you understand what they are. So nouns are a person, place, or thing or idea. Example, Jamie dances. Jamie is a noun, it's a person. A pronoun replaces a noun in a sentence. For example, there's lots of different types of pronouns actually, but here's the basic subject pronoun. He, she, it, we, and they are pronouns, right? Jamie dances, she dances. Okay. But so basically they just replace because we're referring back to a noun that has already been mentioned. A verb is the action, or also it can be a link. They also sometimes call them stative verbs. Well, they're called stative verbs, which means it's a state, like the verb is. Jill is top. Jill is in the room. State of Jill is in the room. And also like feelings, like love. Love's not exactly an action, it's more like a state. So there's another definition of besides action. Here's another example. Dances here is the verb. Okay, and then here says that's the linking verb is, or could be called a stative verb. And there's lots of rules about those. These are just the general ones, not definitions and descriptions. Adjective. It describes a noun or pronoun. Jamie is skinny. We'll say she is thin, right? So this is the pronoun. An adverb. Some people have trouble with adverbs. Just remember an adverb describes an adjective. So we could say she is very skinny, right? Or she is extremely thin. Okay, so this extremely is describing the adjective. Um, Going on, it also describes a verb. And so practices, it's called adverbs of frequency. How often does she practice? She practices often. So the often is telling us how often she practices. How many times does she practice? What's the frequency of the practice? Or another adverb. Jamie dances quite beautifully. So beautifully is describing dances, and quite, which is an adverb, is describing beautifully. Prepositions cause a bit of trouble with a few things, so it's very important that you understand them. So then later when you're doing your revising and editing in your own papers, you'll understand what problems prepositions can cause. Prepositions connects a preposition connects a noun, pronoun, or verb with some other information about it. So there's many prepositions. Here's some just very common ones. Across, around, at, in, of, on, out, right? Those are all prepositions. So we have an example here. Jamie practices at the studio. It connects practices to the studio. Okay. So the conjunction, we know these already. Those are those lovely fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. And we know that coordinating conjunctions can separate two independent clauses. I do have an example here as well, but that's not, the studio is expensive but good. It could also separate two like or adjectives. Okay. All right, so this is going to be your homework, part one. using the parts of speech. The instructions are pretty easy. You just have to fill in the blanks with the part of speech indicated. So, for example, we have more and more wild animals are coming into towns and cities, making life. And you had a blank space, and you want an adjective for them and humans. We see that we need an adjective that fits the sentence. So we have an example, challenging. Okay, so you do need to take into consideration what the sentence is saying and pick an adjective that fits, okay, or an adjective or a preposition or a noun and those types of things. Okay, so you have all those to fill out. We're going to go, please press pause if you want to go to the handout in the module and finish that, or if you want to keep going, that's fine. I'm just going to do a long video for this one. Okay, so the basics, let's see, just check the time and see where we can, oh, well, I think you'll be okay. This one is I was going to try to see if I could do a time stamp, but I don't think I can on Zoom. Okay, so we have to keep going on. We've already talked about this. What is a basic sentence? We know this. We know basic sentence is a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. Okay, if with you can have a subject, you can have a verb, but it also has to have a complete thought because sometimes verbs need more information, or sometimes some type of word like a dependent word will make the clause a dependent clause and not a complete sentence. Okay, so let's take a look. How do we find the subject? We ask who or what is performing the action in the sentence. So, for example, Isaac arrived last night. Isaac is the person who arrived last night. It could also have a thing as a subject. The restaurant has closed. What's the sentence about? It's about the restaurant. So we always have to have a subject. Some languages don't, so be careful because English always does. Because our verbs don't indicate who took the test. So you can't just say took the test. You have to say Jerome took the test, or he took the test, or she took the test. We compound subjects sometimes cause issues because people don't always, know how to agree with the verb, but they should take a verb that goes with a plural subject. So here we have two subjects. Kelly and Kate love animals of all kinds, right? The baby, the cats, and the dog play well together, right? We also see our lovely commas that we went over earlier. Oh, sorry, not yet. Not this class. That's the other class. Sorry. So a compound subject consists of two or more subjects and it's joined by and, or nor. Okay. And we don't use nor that often. But remember, nor is when it's neither person. All right. So here we have going more information about prepositions. Preposition connects a noun, pronoun, or verb with other information. We know that already. Prepositional phrase is a word group that belongs with a preposition and ends with a pronoun or noun. Okay, so here we go. This is a prepositional phrase in the oven. This is the object of the preposition. Okay, so this is the preposition and this is the object of the preposition. Just always want to know this is quite a common thing that all English teachers say is this object of the preposition is never the subject. Okay, because so that's why we need to know about prepositional phrases because we need to recognize where our subjects are. Because the subject of this sentence is dinner. Your dinner is in the oven. So oven cannot be the subject of the sentence because it is the object of the preposition. Okay. Here they're just giving you some examples. We have lots of examples here of prepositions. So one thing people do to make sure they understand that to double check that their verbs are agreeing with the right subject, you can cross out the prepositional phrase. So, for example, won the science project prize. So you have to be careful because sometimes people will make a mistake where they say, oh, the students, it should be, oh, it should agree with students, but it shouldn't agree with students. It should agree with one because this is the prepositional phrase. One of the students won the science prize. So we're agreeing with the subject here. The rules about the dress code. See, here we see that it's plural, it's rules, and here we see it's are because it's agreeing with the rules. Sometimes people might make this mistake of the rules about the dress code is very specific because dress code is here, but dress code is part of that prepositional phrase, so it can't be subject. The sound of dripping water drives me crazy. So here again, subject is sound. This is just a prepositional phrase, and it has to agree with that. Okay, so first, for practice 2, you need to identify subjects and prepositional phrases. Here's an example. So you'll have the sentence, and you just need to cross out the prepositional phrase and underline the sentence. I'm sorry, the subject, underline the subject. So first find the subject and then cross out the prepositional phrase. So this one says the head of the company earned a high salary. We just say the head earned a high salary. Still understand what it means. But right here, this is what we're talking about the person. Let's try it again. On number 1, a company without a chief executive officer conducted a search to find a new leader. So let's find the prepositional phrase. Okay, let's see. Where's some prepositions? You can refer back to the list. We see we have a subject here, a company, and then we see without, and without is a preposition. Where does it end? It ends right at that noun, right? So that's not a noun. These two are describing officers. So now we know we're going to cross out without a chief executive officer conducted a search to find a new leader. Some people also just say, well, just find the verb. That works too. Okay, so you cross out without a chief executive officer and underline company. Okay, let's do another one. The policy of the corporate board was to find an experienced CEO. Okay, so we have the policy. Oh, do we see a preposition right here? Yes, we do. Of the corporate board. So we see that it ends here. We see we have our verb there, so we know that that's what we cross out, and our subject is policy. Okay, so that's for you to do. It's in the module. So let's talk about verbs. So every sentence must have a verb. Okay. Those are words that tell what the subject does, or also they like to call links. Links to another word that it describes. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry, I need to learn to edit my videos. Like so I can edit out sneezing. Anyway, be careful because sometimes verbs do not always immediately follow the subject. Other words can become between them. There's 3 kinds of verbs: action, linking, and helping. So let's talk about these. And you don't have to memorize these. You just have to keep these in mind and do the exercises. Okay, so an action verb tells what action the subject performs. So how do you find that? You see, okay, we see the band played all night. What was happening? What action does the subject perform? It played, right? So that's the verb. The alarm rings loudly. What did it do? It ring. Past tense would be, present tense is it rings loudly, right? So that is the action that the alarm does. A linking verb links, okay? We especially have, like, especially common ones are this verb be, which is am, is, are. And we also have these linking verbs seem and become, okay? So let's take a look. For these ones, we want to ask ourselves what word joins the subject and the word that describes it. Because it's not an action, right? It's the bus is late. So it's just linking them together. Bus late. I feel great today, right? Feel isn't an action. It's a state of being. So same thing. It's a linking verb. It's linking I to great. My new shoes look shiny. Like my shoes, shiny, they look shiny. Milk tastes sour. Milk is sour. It's linking it because it's not an action, right? So we have common linking verbs. We have the forms of be are linking verbs, the forms of seem and become, and the forms of sense verbs. Look, appear, smell, taste, and feel. So that's actually really important. It helps you understand sometimes because it can be difficult if you're looking for a verb and you forget that they're not just action words, they're linking words. Now, helping verbs are for different forms of verbs, right? So let's take a look. A helping verb joins the main verb in a sentence to form the complete verb. So we have helping verb plus the main verb, which equals the complete verb. Example, Sharon was listening to the radio as she was studying for the test. Okay, so this is past progressive, right? And usually it happens in the past when you're doing two things at once or when you're doing something and something else interrupts, right? So here we have present progressive. I am saving my money for a car. Colleen might have borrowed my sweater, right? So we have a modal, right? And then we have present perfect. Okay, so those are the different verb forms that could take helping verbs, right? You must pass this course. Again, modal. You should stop smoking. Modal should. Here are our common helping verbs. Again, we have, that's kind of confusing to people too, because these are forms of be, but these are be plus ing, right? The linking verbs are just the verb be. Forms of have been, have gone, had done. Forms of do, and a bunch of other ones, which are modals. Do you remember studying those before, right? Okay, so let's look at the different examples to see how they are different. So the action verb is Kara graduated last year. Graduated is an action. She did it. She did it, right? Karen is a graduate. This just links her to this. And this is the future, right? So we were using is graduating next year. We could also say will graduate next year. Okay, so for this one, you have to identify the verb. Is it action? Is it linking or helping? Our example here is the original sentence was bowling was created a long time ago. So what you have to do is underline the subject once and double underline or highlight or whatever in your, so do something that I can tell um, on your paper, right? Because you can underline. I don't think you can double underline. So you can either highlight or, yeah, highlight it, okay? Or if you are, some people have been doing written, that's fine. Double underline it if you want to scan it, print it out and scan it, that's fine. Okay, so just make sure I can tell the difference between one underline and highlight or double underline because you want to underline once the subject and twice the verb, and then please identify it. In this case, we see that it's a helping verb. Let's take a look at this one, number one. Let me move it up. The ancient Egyptians invented bowling. So here we have, okay, what's this about? We're about ancient Egyptians. So the main subject is here. A past tense verb here is invented. So what did they do? One line here, double underline here, or highlight invented. Okay. Dutch settlers were responsible for bowling's introduction to North America. Oh, I forgot. This is an action verb, right? Because invent is, don't forget to label it. It's an action verb. Okay. Next one, Dutch settlers were responsible for bowling's introduction to North America. So we find this is the subject, we underline it, then we saw this verb were. This is an adjective, so we know it's not part of the verb. Double underline were, and what type of verb is it? It's a linking verb because it links. It's not an action, it links. So the helping verb, it's one word. Okay, so you can finish that on your own. So make sure that your sentences are always complete thoughts. This does happen, and it creates fragments if you write sentences like, because my alarm didn't go off, because you have a subordinating word here, right? And it just sounds incomplete, right? Because my alarm didn't go off, what? What happened, right? So you need to say something like, because I was late because my alarm didn't go off. And that's fine. That's a complete idea. Another example of an incomplete thought is the people who won the lottery, right? So what about the people who won the lottery? It doesn't make sense. Uh, and old is not a nice word. It should say elderly. Sorry, that's not nice. Look. Okay. So to determine whether a thought is complete, ask yourself. Ask yourself, Do I have to ask a question to understand? If you just said in my wallet, hmm, what's in your wallet, right? The ticket is in my wallet. But of course, in verbal speech, we do this, not in writing. Okay, so this is actually a fun activity because you identify keep complete thoughts or incomplete thoughts. And you just write an I if it's incomplete or a C if it's complete. Okay, so a first example says, my limited cooking skills. Hmm, hmm, hmm. What? Right, it doesn't make any sense. My limited cooking skills. It's not a complete thought. So how did they fix it? They wrote, they added a verb and some information about it, right? My limited cooking skills are well known. So they made that the subject, and then they added a verb, and then they added an adjective, right? So for these ones, you write an I or a C. If they're incorrect, rewrite them. Okay, so this I want you to read on your own because I've done videos on this myself, and I think me just saying the words, it's like the letters, is a little confusing for people. So please read this on your own. It should be basically a view for you, but these are the six basic sentence patterns. And the some people do have trouble because, especially with 5 and 6, I didn't want to read 1 through 4. You can do that. Most people are fine with those, but these two, 5 and 6, have some trouble. Because in a different language, or even if you're a native speaker, sometimes it gets confusing with direct or indirect objects. So the way our pattern is, it's subject, verb, direct object, okay? What is a direct object? People get confused. A direct object directly receives the action of the verb. Students give tests. Okay. An indirect object does not directly receive the action of the verbs. Students give tests to students. See that idea? They're giving the tests, but to the indirect objects are the students. Okay. And also the confusing thing is that they can switch it around. Students give teachers give students tests. But what are they really giving them? They're giving them the tests. And the indirect object is still the students. I'm not going to quiz you or hold you accountable for knowing what's an indirect object or a direct object, but it's important for you to know so you don't make mistakes when you are composing sentences. And if you make mistakes like this, I'll refer you back to this and say, remember the pattern? Okay. Uh, and then you have to write a sentence for each one of those. It's not that hard. If you have trouble with 4 and 5, just look back and see. Think about what somebody could directly give something, and something somebody can indirectly give to the to who, right? Okay, so number 6 is identify complete sentences. Underline each subject of each, underline the subject of each sentence, and underline or highlight the verb. There are 5 incomplete thoughts. Okay, and then you're going to do practice 7 with using the parts of speech. And you're going to fill out the chapter review. Okay, I suggest doing the chapter review first. I think that's the easiest thing to do. Do the chapter review first, then do each individual activity because it kind of gets you remembering each thing. And then you go back and it seems easier. Okay, so those are all your assignments for the basic sentence. You see that we will be doing one of these chapters per week until the end of the semester. So this one was kind of a long one, longer than most, just because it has so much information. But mostly people don't have too much trouble with it, and you should. And if you do, just let me know and I can explain further, or if you have any specific questions, let me know. I will give you the right answers for you to correct your work next week. Okay, so I give you the right answers. And also what I do is after I've seen your homework in class, if there was a big problem, we'll go over the individual exercises together for the classes that are in class. Okay, For online classes, I'll just individually reach out if you have a major problem with something. Okay, and also give you the answers, but giving you the answers isn't always the best thing unless you can understand why you made the mistake, right? So, all right. So thank you very much and good luck. It's a long chapter. Thank you.